There's far too many fighting games out there. Some are great, some are awful, some are debatable. And then you have SVC Chaos, regarded as the dumpster fire of the Capcom SNK crossover series. The game that you gather with friends to play, only to be guaranteed to start fights with friends because someone else picked geese. Now join me as I educate you all to learn how to best get into the game. So, you want to play SVC Chaos SNK vs Capcom? You don't like Capcom vs SNK 2 quite as much, and you want SNK's take on the crossover. But that's not enough. You want playable bosses, but in addition to that, you want the third strike parry on 50 cups of coffee, and a bunch of other complete nonsense that makes the game broken. And questionable hitboxes. And you thought to yourself, man, I love KOF 2002, but I wish it was even more broken and it had Capcom characters in it too. All the while, learning from Akuma, rejecting your humanity, gaining ultimate power and execution, and attempting to kill your friendships in the meantime. This game is non-stop insanity to play through, so much so you could even say it's chaos. Jokes aside, it's still a very fun experience when you finally learn how to navigate everything on offer here, even if you're already a seasoned KOF 2002 player or an SNK player in general. And personally, I love this game. It unfortunately does not boast the 3v3 teams that you would find in the King Fighters, but there's so much more to it underneath to the point it can be described as kusuge. Don't let that word push you into thinking the game is awful, however. Unpolished? Absolutely, but there's very few games like it. One of the biggest reasons I'm making this video, in addition to slowly editing the game's wiki and adding frame data on Shoryuken wiki, or Super Combo wiki now, is to try and dismiss the heavy amount of myths and misinfo that surrounds this game. Second reason, as I already stated, I love this game, enough that I'd put it in my top 3 or 5 fighting games, and I want to help others experience the wonderful mayhem. Plus, keep in mind, just because a game is poorly made or unbalanced, does not mean that it's ultimately unfun to play. This video will mostly focus on the basics, but also try to help give pointers on how to best start playing the game, or if this is even the sort of game you'd want to play to begin with. One fighting gamer's trash is another's treasure, and what matters most is if you yourself want to play it. Here are the timestamps of this video, and if you're already familiar with what SVC Chaos entails, since you've played it before, or are sure you wish to play it yourself, skip to this timestamp in the video to cut straight to the mechanics. There's 3 versions. The normal version where bosses need secret codes to select, really long ones at that, SVC Plus, a hack which makes all but the last 4 bosses selectable by default, and SVC Super Plus, another hack which, much like the PS2 and Xbox versions of the game, allows everyone including the final 4 bosses to be selectable. As a side note, you can play 2 of the 4 final bosses on the AES port of the game, but not the other 2. Unfortunately, however, Super Plus is missing voice files for characters like Geese in order to make room in the ROM file for it. This is only a couple characters, but still. Regardless, this is the most preferred version of the game for people. The platform the game is most played on, Fightcade, always has the most people in this lobby. Really no reason to play the other lobbies, and not to mention if you're playing SVC, it's probably because you play the bosses yourself too. Generally speaking, SVC is a very zoning, punish-heavy game, filled to the brim with opportunities to punish the opponent with a well-executed guard cancel, zoning characters, and plenty of knowledge checks. Guard cancels are more than capable of bringing about player creativity and giving everyone in the cast variety and playstyle. It doesn't stop there. Thanks to the KOF systems it borrows from, this game has lots of movement going on too. It's not as movement heavy as KOF is, since hops are gone and rolls were cut out because of rushed development, but front step is a good compromise regardless. Now, I love this game. It's easily one of my favorite fighting games ever, but that doesn't mean it's for everyone. and given the nature of the game, you kinda need the iron gut to sit through and stomach it all. More so than your typical retro SNK game, and that's saying a lot when it comes to SNK fighting games. If you enjoy playing any sort of fighting game where the most fun you've had is from breaking it in half and seeing how unfair it is, you'll love this game. If you love punishes, you might like this game. If you love the idea of learning tons of different matchups that all affect how you play based on who your main is, you will definitely love this game. The game is chock full of knowledge checks that you'll always be learning something new every time you play it. And when talking about fan service, man, SNK did not hold back at all. Character endings, dialogue, and animations are also wonderful that it's such a shame the game was never finished. And the graphics, I mean, just look at Kim's pants. But of course, no game is perfect, so let's get this out of the way. If you can't stand broken fighting games, you will loathe everything about SVC Chaos. And I don't mean broken as in one character is busted or the game is played in an unintended way. I'm talking it's so busted that everyone has their own BS they can work with, the mechanics are kinda broken, you will lose it once you realize how inconsistent some hitboxes are, proximity issues with hitboxes, and even then there are still characters who overshadow everyone else because the game as a whole is incredibly unbalanced, meaning you will lose it if you don't do your research or practice. There's no avoiding it. Other factors you might not like are the execution barrier, although many characters are still easy enough, the tons of zoning characters there are, or the amount of shotos, or even stuff like the post-apocalyptic art style. There's a lot of fan favorites entirely missing from the game too, so no Chang, no Ikari Warriors, no Haomaru, no Zangief, no Blanca, no Morgan, or even other Capcom properties. Capcom has Zero, Tessa, Dimitri, and Ridorima at least. This game was rushed and thus there's quite a bit of cut content, such as roles and other possible character inclusions. However, roles can be found in the game's code technically, and if you prefer slower games, this game is not for you. Want to play a grappler? Well, unfortunately, your only choice is Hugo, and he sucks. But if you can get past all that, underneath is a game that will always test but reward your punishment space control. A game where, as you accumulate more knowledge, changes your view of the game greatly. SVC Chaos is one of those games that I think people need to try out for themselves to truly see if it's something they would like or not. Reading a summary doesn't do the game justice. Let's get this out of the way real quick. You might immediately think this game is loosely based on KOF 2002, and in some regard you're right, but this game is actually closer to KOF 2003 as they share the same engine. Though technically SVC came first, so it's a weird halfway point. But really, the only reason this game shares similarities with 2002 is because of max mechanics and the fact that some characters are literal copy-paste jobs from KOF 2002. If you've ever played King of Fighters before, you pretty much already know the controls. A is light punch, B is light kick, C is heavy punch, and D is heavy kick. You jump by pushing up and super jump by flicking down before hitting up. Keep in mind, there are no hops or hyper hops in this game, nor are there rolls. A plus B instead does one of two universal throws, which throws forward. CD does a back throw. When being grabbed, you can throw break with a well-timed AB or CD, depending on the throw that was used, making it a 50-50 mix-up. Keep in mind, moving throws will actually deplete your meter too. On block, pressing CD activates the KOF blowback. Self-explanatory. You knock the opponent across the screen for 1 bar of meter to shake them off of pressuring you. You can also push either BC or forward dash input to activate guard cancel front step on block. The start button will taunt, but it gives your opponent free meter. A short aside. If you're playing any Capcom characters like Ryu or Akuma, you might be wondering, wait, what happened with the mediums, the strongs and forwards? Well, put simply, the shadows kept their medium kicks as command normals. So basically, hold it down back, hit D or heavy kick, and you will get the crouching medium kick as the command normal. This design choice can be found for other Capcom characters like Dhalsim or Dimitri, who, to make up for 2 less buttons, have a lot more command normals. Dashing works like any other fighting game. You press forward twice to dash forwards, so there are no KOF runs in this game. Forward dash just does an ordinary dash forward for a brief moment. Dashing, however, has a second function off of block, the guard cancel front step. Front step gives a successfully timed input from block, an invincible dash forward that allows the defending player to steal back the advantage or push forward more safely. It must be timed off of just after when the opponent hits you with an attack on block. To do this, push either BC together or forward dash input. BC costs 60% of 1 meter, whereas the dash input only costs 20% of 1 meter. The BC input is much easier to do and is easier to use against stray pokes, albeit costly, but regardless of your skill level, you are able to still perform it, assuming you have the meter for it. If you can, however, time the dash input consistently, then you should always do that instead and save the meter, especially when any follow-up combo would negate the meter you lost from front step. If you're about to kill the opponent, then sure, BC is fine to use. For the most part, try to learn the dash input. It must be stated that if you want to get into SVC Chaos to any extent, you absolutely must learn front step, or else you will be fighting a very tall uphill battle. One other block mechanic to keep a note of is the green meter below your health bar. This is the block meter, which if dropped to 0, will guard break you and the opponent can follow up with free poke or combo. Simply enough, just don't get guard broken. And yes, you can also be stunned in this game as well. Just get hit enough times and you'll be stunned, so don't get stunned either. One quick aside with the controls. I mean, you already know the controls if you played our fighting games, but you hold left to move left, you hold right to move right, you hold down to crouch, hold back to block, or you hold down back to crouch block. Easy enough. And that's your movement. Very easy. When you're backdashing, however, it looks like you get a pretty good sizable amount of distance, but one thing unique with some characters, like Kyo for example, you can get more distance with this on his command normal. So this command normal, down, jump down C, he thrusts his fist downwards. It's a hard knockdown when it hits in the air, and otherwise makes a good combo starter off a jump in if you have the execution for it. Off a backdash, to get more distance than that, Kyo can do this. Well, it's a little tight, but as soon as the backdash starts, then yeah, you're covering more distance. Normal backdash. And when you do the backdash, you get some more distance this way. So if you really need it, you need extra distance, just do that. As soon as you backdash, immediately do down C. This example is most commonly associated with Yuri. Regular Yuri backdash, and same thing. You stop around this light that's in the background. He has this command normal, jump back B, but what you can do in neutral is this. And it covers nearly the entire stage. So this makes escaping with Yuri a phenomenal option and just exponentially increases his movement options. Of course, not every character can do this, as this is tied to aerial command normals. However, Mai can also do this. And it's the same thing as Kyo with her jump down A. You do a backdash, standard distance with a backdash. And you have to be a little quick on this one, but like Kyo, but you get more distance. And there you have it. The meter in this game looks like your typical KOF advanced mode meter. To fill it, simply deal damage, attack with a special move, be taunted at, or block an attack. Supers cost 1 bar of meter from up to 3 you can stack. Well, not really 3 you can stack, because this game also has max mode. When you fill up your meter to max, you will automatically enter max mode, and your meter will slowly decrease. Once empty, it will be reset to 2 bars of meter. From max mode is what you can expect from KOF. Cancelable attacks, not normally cancelable, cancelable specials, cancels into supers from attacks you normally can't cancel from otherwise, and wider combo potential. It can also be decreased if you whiff a throw attempt for 25% meter. Successful throws, however, will have you lose no meter. To go more in depth with max mode, if you've played KOF 2002 or 2002 UM, then you already know how it works. The only major differences are you have more overall max mode meter to work with here as opposed to those games. Another thing, max mode is only accessible once you reach full meter, that is to say 3 bars. When this happens, you enter max mode immediately, so make the most of it while you can. That, and when you use a super, it decreases from the max mode meter remaining, but if it ends max mode, it will still return to the 2 bars of meter. If you haven't played those games, then the very basic gist is you can cancel special moves into each other for longer combos and higher damage. Not all characters need it, but it often provides to offer some sort of benefit to them if they don't outright need it. If you've played any other fighting game, you know what teching is, or recovery roll. When falling down from a combo or knockdown attack, time pressing AB to do a recovery roll that recovers faster and gives your opponent less of a chance to capitalize on wake-up pressure. Do keep in mind, however, you can only recovery roll backwards. The timing is also a bit strict, but you'll get used to it. The final mechanic to mention is the X-Seed, which simply is a desperation super. When your health falls under 50% life, aka it becomes all red, your character's name will begin flashing, meaning you can use your X-Seed. X-Seeds are very strong supers that can help in returning the match to your favor at the cost of no meter. Do keep in mind, however, that you can only use the X-Seed 1 time, not twice or 3 times, but once for the whole match, so be careful when trying to use it or else it's gone for good, regardless of the outcome. One other thing to make note of, just 2 quick mechanics. There's a mechanic in KOF called backturn hits, which I'm not going to be able to get really all that good of a reproducible result here. But basically, say you do this combo. I dropped it, but yeah, there you go. Combos, but the first Rekka has to whiff. Meanwhile, if you were to get this combo on a back hit opponent instead, then you'd be able to do all 3 hits of the Rekka, because basically what a back hit does is, if you were to hit them on the back, then they'd be facing the other way. It basically makes it where there's less pushback, their hitboxes are oriented differently, and so you can do combos you normally cannot do on front hit. It's more advanced tech, so I won't go too deep into it. But, just to at least mention it. And another thing, characters have different health values, though it's very janky. Because here's the problem. An attack not only does different amounts of damage, like I did close A as 0 right there, and it does 4 points of damage both times. Very basic stuff. Nothing special. But now, as you saw right there, it just did 5 points of damage for whatever reason. And you know, this applies to everyone. You know, some characters have bigger examples of different damage values, whereas, say, Akuma, he has really low health. And you know, that was just 50% of his life right there. And sometimes the combo can do less damage than that. I mean, that was still 50%, but it looks like it just did a pinch more damage. Like 1 or 2 points more damage right there. Whereas that one now looks like it did about the same the first time. But you do this combo against, say, Ryu. The same combo, or the same attack, stand A, and 4 points, 4 points. 3 points damage now. Okay, so I would suggest Ryu has more health, but you do the close C Rekka combo, and that is almost 50% damage, but not quite. And that one looks like it did a smidge more. And that looks like it did about roughly the same amount as the first attempt. You get the point. So this isn't the best example I can produce, and I'm not going to stress over creating the craziest example, but not only do your attacks do varying amounts of damage, it's not that wild. It's not like it's Super Turbo or KOF 94 or anything like that, where those attacks are really fucking random. It's really just like very small, tiny differences in damage of like at most 1 or 2 points difference in how much your attack deals. But you also have to take into factor that characters have different health values, or rather they have different health damage modifiers. Because I think everyone in this game shares the same amount of health. I can't verify that for sure, but they take varying amounts of damage, and some characters just naturally take more damage than others. Unfortunately, I don't have more concrete info than that because I don't have the hard facts of who takes more damage and who doesn't. And really, I think the only people that know that were the people who coded that 100% for a fact. But hopefully one day we'll have that info like dead set on. And it isn't just they probably take more damage, or they take more damage but it's not as much as this other character and it's only a rough idea. One last thing to note. This game, much like King of Fighters, has move buffering. When doing a combo, you can hold the input down rather than time the next input manually, and as long as you don't do it too early, the attack will come out frame 1. This is easily one of the most important tricks to learn in KOF if you need help doing combos. Now, you do not need to learn button hold. You can very much do combos and cancels naturally with practice, but if you really struggle with KOF execution, this could prove immensely beneficial to you as a whole. So another example with button hold. So say you're playing Yuri, you can do close C, forward A, super cancelable, into his Maiden Masher Rambu super. You can do this input naturally, of course, nothing is stopping you. But if you're really struggling to do this, a really neat trick with button hold you can do is, you press C, you hold C, you don't let go of C, you just hold it, and you do a quarter circle forward motion into forward A, and watch what happens. Normally, if you were to do that, you just get fireball. But when you hold the button, it will not buffer a special move, but rather buffer the motion, but instead of buffering into a special move, it will instead cancel into command normal, and that way, when I let go, I can then do and super. Now, you do have to let go, because if you don't let go of the see it button, nothing happens. It will not cancel in super because I'm still holding the button. So you do have to remember to let go of the button, but otherwise, and same applies with close B. extremely useful trick in case you're really struggling to just do the raw input. Yeah, you can do the raw input if you're fast enough. Of course, you don't have to subject yourself to that. And then, same applies to this. Or, no, not that. Yeah, just held AC, and follow-up came out 0 issues. Okay, so quick aside, there's never a reason to not use button hold, but there is one exception I can think of, very specific to this game, where you actually would not want to button hold your combo. So what Sagat can do is, he can do a very simple combo, close C, or crouch C, into his critical circle back kick super. Very easy. You can also combo this super into Xseed, but here's the problem when you button hold it. The Xseed drops because I button hold. And basically what you want the Xseed to do is not have the first DP hit, but have the first DP whiff, and the second DP hits, not the second DP whiff. But because I button held, then it caused the damage to go significantly lower because I whiffed DP. So rather, you have to delay it a little. And there you go, much more damage right there. As opposed to that, where you see the difference. I lost so much damage right there. But basically, if it helps you, always button hold, but this one very specific example I can think of is probably the only time you would not want to button hold. Another great example with move buffering, Ken combo is to do heavy DP and super. And yeah, you can do, sure, you could try to do DP into, yeah, nothing's stopping you, but you really don't have to do that. Instead, what you can do is, there you go, you can just do that. Because I'm pressing forward into down and down forward, so that's DP, and I press forward again, and I already buffers the one quarter circle forward, then I just do a second one, and then boom, you got DP, cancel, and super. Very effortless. Or even as Ryo, you can do DP, and instead of doing DP into quarter circle forward, half circle back rather, is Ranbu. Which, that's pretty, it looks like a really tight cancel. Instead of doing that crazy long motion the entire time, what you can do instead is just, there you go. Just do DP into the half circle back, punch, and there you go. You got the super cancel, and you buffered part of the super motion, and all you had to do was a DP. This might be deviating from the main purpose of this video a bit, but I felt it was necessary to include just in case you're not a seasoned SNK player. Here's the obvious. This is not a Street Fighter game, nor is this even a King of Fighters game, so you do not play SVC Chaos like either game. However, it still follows SNK design philosophy. And because this is also using an engine very similar to KOF to run the game, combos are performed the same way you perform KOF combos. If you play KOF, or at least have played KOF enough that you're used to it, then you don't need an explanation and can skip this section. If you're not a KOF player, then I'd advise watching this part. Let's start with some basic info in the KOF combo execution crash course. When you press any button, the game waits 4 frames, and after the 4th frame, whatever direction is held is the attack that will be used. Basically, if you press A and 4 frames later, no directional input is detected, the game will do a standing A attack. If you're holding down by the end of that window, a crouching A attack comes out. This same rule applies to command normals, air normals, etc., etc. In other words, there's a deliberate 4 frames of delay that the attack does not come out for this reason. This applies to the KOF games as well. However, keep in mind this does not apply to specials or supers. So, just to illustrate an example, I'll pause the game, I'll hold A. So, FB Neo has 1 frame of input delay intentionally. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the next frame, the attack starts, and it is a standing A. Simple enough. Same here, 1 frame of delay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then next frame, crouching A. So let's see what happens when I decide to press down on the very last frame. So pause, hold A, 1 frame of delay again, 1, 2, 3, I will now hold down the next frame, 4, and crouch A comes out. So then, 1 frame of delay, 1, 2, 3, let go of down, 4, and stand A comes out. Same for command normals. I can tap B and quickly tap forward. I do not have to hold forward as I do B, or if I press forward and B but let go forward, then it just scoots Kyo forward and he does a standing B. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 rather, because 1 frame delay, then hold forward and he does forward B. Simple enough. So then 1, 2, 3, let go forward, and standing B comes out. This sounds like it would be a detriment to you in terms of executing combos, but in reality you won't even feel that 4 frame of delay, and if you play KOF at all, then you probably wouldn't have even noticed it was there to begin with. But that rule is why you can also do stuff like this, where normally you do crouch A, like say crouch A into flash kick B, crouch C, flash kick. You get the gist. Normally you do that, but instead what you can do is, with that 4 frame rule, you can do stuff like this. I just did a standing A, all I did was press crouch A, and before the 4 frame window was up, I just let go of down, and since I'm charging to move, I just pressed up during that 4 frame window, but because I'm not buffering jump, there you go. And this applies to all the other buttons as well. Another thing to keep in mind, this isn't Street Fighter, so no, you don't need links. Now yes, there are a few situations where you'll need to use links in combos, but these are usually easy to do and are tied to the character you play anyways. As a general rule of thumb, you don't need them, and you absolutely do not need them to start combos. Just use chains instead to start most of your combos. Like so. I dropped it the first time, but you get the point. Now sure, you could do crouch B, close C as Rio, as that is a link that works. A 2 frame link, to be precise. I'm gonna drop it all the time, but as you saw earlier, it does work. There you go. And sure, you could do close B, close C as Iori into any combo. Another 2 frame link. This one I will also drop all the time as well, being a 2 frame link. But yeah, you get the gist. And technically, yes, this is his most optimized combo off of back hit taco. But the thing is, most people don't really play this way in KOF or SNK games in general when you have chains like this, even the pro players. Plus, these are really strict links, at least in SVC. KOF combos work by following either a light starter or a heavy starter, and especially when it comes to light starters, it's better to chain lights together than to try and risk a tight link from a light one to a heavy. assuming your character has one at least. So, just to illustrate, not a real combo, but you get the point. That was infinitely easier to do that than this close C, since close B cancels into the forward A command normal. Or the example with Orochi Yuri. You get the point. Keep this in mind, you don't need links to start combos. The reward is arguably pretty small given the risk tied to them, even if they result in the most damage. And maybe it's just me, but it feels like SVC has slightly less buffer than regular KOF does, though it's way more buffer than 2003 by a long shot, considering it's the same engine. And just to make it clear, I'm not saying these links are useless. If you're amazing at execution and you're good at the game, then sure, going for them once in a while can be very beneficial. But avoid them if you're a beginner player. Also remember, you can still be good at the game even without link combos, because again, most people don't play that way. They just do combos like so. Yeah, like so. Or another example. Yeah, just like that. Much better doing that than going for some dumb link that your character may or may not have, when it's probably a very tight link to do in the first place. Again, that doesn't mean never use your heavy buttons. They have their use, but always prioritize your lights. You won't get very far without using your lights. They have several uses, several purposes that you need to keep in mind. As a beginner, it can be pretty hard, understandably, since the feel and rhythm to it you probably aren't very used to. Just keep practicing, take it slow, and you'll get the hang of it. Not just for the character you play, but for every character in the game, as combos work pretty similarly across most of the cast. If you can combo with one character, you can combo with the rest of them. The real hard part is hit confirming your combos, something you cannot do with your heavies. So if you have a character with command normal, then yeah, you could just do command heavy into command normal and that's a hit confirm. But Ken doesn't have that, so he has to go straight for a special. Or violent Ken rather, either way. Both violent Ken and normal Ken. Whereas your lights, look at all that time you get to hit confirm your combo. As opposed to if I just did that. Obviously in punish scenarios, then you don't need the hit confirm as much, but it still helps a lot, especially on jump ins. Now, one thing getting used to with the hit confirms, that's very difficult for anyone to get used to. KOF is very much, if you can't hit confirm your combos, and if you can't use your lights, then you're not getting very far. And you very much need the ability to confirm your combos. Another thing, however, you might be very used to, you might also be very used to jump-ins, leaving a ton of hits done on your opponent as they connect. But that's not the case with KOF jump normals. I'm hitting his head, and the combo is just not connecting at all. So what gives? Try to hit them early and all you'll find is that they don't combo and your opponent can block the combo. You see, it doesn't leave much stun. To circumvent this, you have to land your jump-ins deep, around the middle of their body, as opposed to landing them higher up. So that was too early. That was just right. You have to land it deep, like that. Now, it will combo and you can continue your pressure. To add onto the previous part where I mentioned the buffer can potentially lead to inputs you didn't intend, albeit a non-issue once you're used to it, the other thing that I think people don't realize with KOF combos is the crazy long buffer that you get in a good number of the games, which effectively makes all combos, or at least almost all combos you do, significantly easier once you realize it's there. It varies how much buffer you get depending on the game, but generally KOF and SNK input buffer in general is quite lenient, but not too much so. Well, unless you're KOF 15, but that's a different story. And while I could demonstrate with a combo how lenient it is, I think it's better to just watch how delayed my inputs are and see what happens. I don't know the exact number of frames of buffer you get, off the top of my head at least, but it's still very lenient. So I'm just gonna throw a fireball, and it's gonna be like, just watch my lever and watch how delayed the attack button is, and just watch like how much delay there is between each, and fireball will still come out. Well, yeah. Okay, it's not that much buffer, but and there you go. It's just a very basic example, but I think that gives you a pretty good idea of just how much buffer this game has. There's also super motion shortcuts for those really long super motions. You do not need them, but if you're struggling to do them, they help a lot. If you're new to the game especially, I would consider at least thinking about using them just to make things a little easier for yourself. So, at least in normal KOF, regular Iori, and as well as Orochi Iori here, has two supers. A fireball super, quarter circle back, half circle forward punch. And he has a second super, quarter circle forward, half circle back punch. The Maiden Masher, or rather known as a Rambo type super. Now, normally, yeah, these are pretty long motions, and you're probably not used to them as you don't really find them in any other fighting game for the most part. So they take some getting used to. The thing is, you don't have to do the whole motion. In actuality, there's a few ways to shorten that process. So a really easy one you can do is just, instead of shorten quarter circle back, half circle forward, you can do 2 quarter circle backs, press forward, and super comes out. And vice versa. You can just do 2 quarter circle forwards, press back, and super still comes out. Another way to shorten it, and a simple way to just keep in mind, you can also do quarter circle back, half circle. Yeah, I did the full motion, but you can do quarter circle back, quarter circle forward, and the super will still come out. I'm not doing a good example of this, but vice versa. You can just do quarter circle forward, quarter circle back. You don't need to do the full half circle motion, just the quarter circle, and the attack will still come out, since the game really doesn't bother to check for the diagonals in half circle motions. And one other way of doing it, which is something Terry and Kim have tied to their super inputs in general for, you can just do quarter circle back, down, back, forward, and it still comes out, and vice versa. And for when you're struggling with half circle back or half circle forward supers, whatever it be, just keep in mind the game does not check for the diagonal inputs. So you can just do back down forward, or forward down back for those double half circle supers, and you're pretty much all set. And same deal with Hugo if you want to do his X seed, which is a 360 input of full circle motion. You don't need to do the full circle, you can just do half circle back, press up, and there you go, you got the super. The game doesn't check for the full circle motion, it just checks that you hit at least most of the directions. So you can just end on pressing up, and Hugo will still get it. One other bit for super shortcuts. Uses Raging Storm as pretzel motion, so down back, so back, and down forward, and you get super. Takes some getting used to, seems really hard, but one way people can shortcut it, just triple half circle back input, or double half circle back into down forward. It's really long to do it that way, so I don't recommend you do it that way. If you can do a natural pretzel, and that's obviously the fastest way to do it, as triple half circle back, even for really fast people, that's still 3 whole half circle motions you have to do just to get the super to come out. And doing double half circle back into down forward isn't much better, but if you're struggling to do that with Raging Storm, the pretzel motion, you can do that. Again though, if you can, I would heavily recommend just doing it the raw, clean input as best as you can, but you do have a shortcut for the pretzel at the least. Last bit of combo advice, something specific to SVC Chaos, as this is not an issue in the KOF games, charge motions. Now, normally, if you want to do a charge attack, say Balrogs, charge back, forward punch, or, say you want to do his anti-air. Or, not that anti-air, but this anti-air. His charge up. Simple stuff. You hold back to charge, you press forward, and you press the attack button. Or you hold down to charge, and you press up to attack. Very simple. With KOF, SNK games in general, and this game too, I don't know the exact frame count that you charge for, but it's roughly 30 frames if it's not exactly 30 frames. So pretty short charge time. So here's the thing that trips people up. Normally, you usually like to, say you want to charge into his back punch, his charge punch rather, and you go to down back, and you're charging up, and you're ready to release it, and you press forward, and nothing happens. Or say you want to do his charge anti-air up, you just do a jump attack. So you might be wondering, hey, what's the big deal? Why am I not getting my charge attack? So here's the deal with SVC Chaos. You have to, for the charge motion to come out, you have to first tap back for a very brief frame. It doesn't matter how long you tap back for, just as long as you tap back for at least 1 frame. Now your attack will come out. And the same applies to your down charges. If you go straight to down back, you might still get the attack you want, but very unlikely. I only know what attack I'm getting because I can read my input reader, but if you aren't completely sure whether you're holding back or down before you hold down back, as you would any other fighting game, then either you won't get the attack you intended, or you straight up won't get anything and you just get a standing button so yeah, that's all it really is. If you're struggling with the charge motions, just remember, tap back for at least 1 frame, and then you can do the charge motion, or rather tap down if you want to do an up charge. Simple stuff, takes some getting used to, but just keep that in mind and you'll get through it in no time. And say you want to do an X seed and the motion starts at down back. So Balrog's X seed is your charge down back, then down forward, down back, up forward. The game registers this as a down charge. not a back charge. If you try to do back into down back and then do the motion, you won't get the attack you want. So rather what you should do is hold, tap down, then down back, then do the motion, or not that. And there you go, you got the X seed for the down back charge. Also, for the sake of brevity, I was going to have a whole section of tips, who to recommend as beginner characters, tier list discussion, so on and so forth, but I would rather respect my own health, and honestly, I'd just be repeating verbatim what I would be writing under the wiki FAQ anyways. I probably could have omitted the combo execution tips too, but I felt it was somewhat necessary just to help clarify the misconceptions that KOF combos are difficult. I'll give you all the cliff notes of versions, but more detailed answers, just check the wiki unless people really want more detailed answers from me. Beginner characters. Basically, Terry, Kyo, and Yuri are perfect for teaching you fundamentals and also teaching you KOF stuff if you're interested in learning that game as well. Kim might be controversial, but here, he's very easy to play and gets away with so much damage for so little. Some difficult tech, but not anything you absolutely need either. Ryu and Ken are just as easy here as they are Street Fighter, perfectly good shotos to play with, though Ryu is much better than Ken is. And Guile's only issue is getting used to the charge motions, otherwise he's a turtle demon, so go ham. And Chun-Li is the buns demon as she usually is in Street Fighter, few problems with her, and it is pretty easy to pick her up with good rushdown and zoning, albeit she is meter hungry. This time, however, she has a couple new quirks like a command grab to further benefit her. As for the tier list, this too I'll keep brief, but keep in mind this is just my opinion. Meta really hasn't changed much over the years. It's more a matter that I think people sleep on some characters, namely Akuma, Kim, normal Yuri, to name a few, are better than I think people give credit for. Now some could go higher up, but no one plays him. Though I'd be hard pressed to consider him anything higher than mid tier at best. But keep in mind, this game is matchup heavy, and at the end of the day, if you're a good player, then most everyone is viable unless you're bottom 5. In which case, you're asking to suffer. Technically, Dan and M. Bison are the worst characters in the game. Dan might even be better than M. Bison. But here's the reason I put Hugo at the very bottom. In the context of bosses being loud, Hugo has way too many issues to put up with. Can't handle zoning, too big, too slow, needs matchup knowledge to work. Needs meter, but is always forced to spend it, and in some matchups there's a likely chance he cannot win, or it's roughly 1-9. And the tips? I was going to list every single tip I had in mind out, and some footage to spare, but I'll name the big ones quickly. 1. Learn guard cancel front step. This will make any matchup significantly easier and gives you big punishes when you use it well. Practice it when you can and preferably try to learn to dash up at save meter. Learning to front step will make even the worst matchups a lot more bearable for you. 2. Even if you can't do a combo off of guard cancel front step, do a grab. It forces the opponent to guess 50-50, you lose almost nothing if they guess correctly anyways. 3. Use all of your movement options, but also remember to mix up your normal and super jumps to avoid being too predictable. 4. Also use all of your buttons in general. It's still a buttons heavy game in its core, especially your lights which serve a ton of different uses, especially for hit confirming your combos. 5. In general, this game isn't honest and the pressure can especially be overwhelming, so regardless of the fact it doesn't do damage, if you absolutely need breathing room, remember to use your guard cancel blowback here and there to shake the opponent off and break free of their pressure. You can also use this offensively on a defending opponent to keep them trapped in the corner, though this is what front step is for anyways. 6. Struggling against Athena, pretty much everything is punishable with basic patience and front step. she's the one-trick pony. 7. Struggling with Red Reamer. When he summons demons, there's gaps in his recovery and positioning you can take advantage of, even if it's very tricky to do so. His fireball is amazing though, sometimes you're forced to respect it as it'll probably go through whatever you throw at it. Many of the other bosses give him a lot of shit though, including Athena. 8. To deal with Shinakuma, try and front step the first fireball of his air fireballs. Easier said than done, but the second fireball will have a better chance of whiffing and you get some time to punish him as he's landing. And be very wary of his X-Seed, arguably the best one in the game. 9. Orochi Iori is basically the same as how you would deal with regular Iori, just much faster. First trades if you have to, his health is lower than average, and be wary of how he chases after you. 10. While I could add more, in general this is how you need to approach the boss characters. Do your homework on how to deal with them, but on the bright side you will basically always encounter them. 11. Last tip, please just don't play Red Reamer mirrors ever. I'm begging you. Finally, regarding the tier list, and since I didn't really have a section for this tidbit, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Tournament rules. You'll often hear several different takes regarding the rules of SVC Chaos tournaments and how X and Y should be banned. Well, unfortunately, there's no universally agreed upon rule set for this game. Some people will say all bosses should be banned, some will say all should be allowed, some will say that all bosses but Dan should be banned because hey, it's Dan and he sucks. Some will say only Geese and Zero should be banned, or maybe X and Y character as well for being especially bothersome or broken. And for the few times I've tried running SVC tournaments, I've basically said all bosses allowed but no infinite, since it's only Geese and Zero with the really egregious infinites. On top of both characters being god tier even without them. A couple other characters have infinites, but take infinites away and everyone else who has one doesn't really lose anything of significance. They're the kind of infinites that you probably won't see in a real match anyways. And for tournaments with prize money, I banned bosses but not the infinites. At least, that's how I felt until I eventually started thinking, hey, this game is broken and trying to put a band-aid on it will not do anything. And people who play this game regularly don't care anymore either. So now I'm of the camp that as long as it doesn't crash the game, it's fully tournament legal to do. Plus, this game's balancing is beyond salvation, and everyone plays bosses. But at the end of the day, I can't give you a comprehensive yes and no of the rules for this game, nor can anyone else, as you could debate endlessly about these rules. Though I think that the vast majority of people who do play the game regularly agree that they don't care about bans and overall would rather not see any. And that's how I feel. Just let it rock. And okay, very last detail of the video, I promise. This game now finally has training support for Fightcade, and even more notably, hitboxes. So now you don't have to go to the AES or console versions of the game or UniBIOS to get a training mode for the game, nor do you have to use a Lewis script or dip switches to view the in-game hitboxes, though you can still do that if you wish. All you really need to do is load up Fightcade, enter any SVC lobby, and click right here on the training next to test game, and there you go. It will boot up into a 2-player match, so remember to have player 2 controls as well. Voila, you're in a 2-player match with a training mode to work with. Though I am making this section for a reason, here's a few things to keep in mind and how to use it. Firstly, kudos to Peon2 for making the training mode Lewis script for just about every Fightcade game it supports in general. He didn't do all the work, but he is the one who has helped compile all of it. Secondly, the work of the hitbox goes to Manjed, or I think Mountain Manjed, something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's something Manjed. So thank you to him as well for making hitboxes in general. And in his original script, he also enabled health values, meter values, and stun values, so on and so forth, that originally wasn't possible to see in-game without the SVC Chaos Enterbrain Mook. And then, of course, as I work on the wiki, both this and the SVC Chaos MOOC are a huge boon in helping me document this info. Using the training mode script itself is quite easy too. I won't give a comprehensive tutorial here. It's pretty self-explanatory, and others, such as Piantu himself, do a better job explaining it. But I will give you the basic details. Hold the coin button for a while and let go, or press it 4 times in a row to open up the menu. Here you have a wide number of details. You can also press it twice to record for your opponent's inputs. Press it once. I forget if, pressing 3 times, you can take direct control of the second player if you absolutely need. And so there's that as well. I would still recommend having 2P controls just to make completely sure you have it in case you need anything, but still. Then just press it 3 times again and you switch back. Now, having the hitboxes viewable at all is of course absolutely phenomenal. Originally, I would have told you that if you wanted to view the SVC hitboxes, you have to turn on the dip switch for it. The easiest way of doing that would have been to load up the game in Uni BIOS. But this has its own issue of displaying the hitboxes awkwardly with only corners showing and colors not matching what you would typically suspect for a hitbox viewer, being just pure black or flashing purple. It's weird. Usable, but you'd have to get used to looking at it. Another thing, while not an issue of the Lua script itself, FB Neo displays hitboxes a frame earlier than they actually are. However, this does not happen on FB Alpha, Final Burn Alpha rather. So I'll pause just to illustrate. So hold C and 1 frame delay. 1, 2, 3, 4. He'll do crouch C, and this is not the actual hitbox. The next frame, that's the hitbox. But the frame before that is not an issue with the Lua script. It's an issue with the emulator because the emulator displays the hitboxes 1 frame earlier than it's supposed to. I don't know how you would fix that issue, but just please keep that in mind. Additionally, an issue that is unfixable from what I've been told, the hitboxes also display 1 pixel wider and taller on the right and bottom sides. This affects literally nothing, but I figured I would mention it, even though it's 1 pixel's difference, and you still get the entire gist of hitboxes. And just to illustrate what I mean by the hitboxes looking weird, well, here you go. You can clearly distinguish what the hurt boxes are and what the push box is, so that's very easy. And you pause, and yeah, you can still distinguish what the attack hitboxes are, though they have some weird fluctuating color for whatever reason. If I can get a good shot. Yeah, there you go. A better example. It's purple because it flashes from purple to white, and then once it hits solid white, it goes back to deep purple. Which, once you're used to seeing it, then it's really not that big of an issue. Okay, there you go. So, as you can see, or as you probably barely see, the hitboxes do display. However, they are 1 pixel wider on the right and taller on the bottom, which again, this seriously doesn't affect anything. Once you're used to it, you basically aren't going to even notice the difference, but still, it's worth mentioning. And another thing, neither the Lua script or the dip switches show any of the throw boxes, unfortunately. So let's pull up Yori, for example. And lastly, well, it's buggy. Pretty buggy. I wouldn't have any clue why this is the case, but there's cloning hitboxes. So you also have to go out of your way to use attacks just to get rid of cloned hitboxes. And it really does not feel like there's any sort of consistency to why it happens, other than super jumps always end up cloning themselves. And yeah, you can see with Serious Mr. Karate, it's pretty bad. And they're even cloning themselves as I super jump, which is really bad. I mean, Ryu doesn't even have Serious Mr. Karate fireballs and they're still following him. So it's, yeah, it's pretty bad. So if you'd rather just not deal with any of that, here's the dip switch setting for it in UniBIOS 1.2. And the hitbox color codings, basically black or very dark brown as it sometimes shows up, is your hurt box. This flashing white bluish box in the middle is your push box. That yellow, or yeah, yellow axis in the middle is your just character center. And attacks will show purple, or same with counter and push boxes. And there will be a deep purple, and fireballs, same deal, they'll just be black, but you still get the gist of it. It should be pretty familiar to you once you get accustomed to it. It takes a while to get used to, but hey, as long as it works. And of course, if you're using UniBIOS, you can set it to AES and use the in-game training mode, which isn't so bad, but of course it's limited compared to the Lua script itself. Wow. If someone could please, maybe hopefully help fix this Lua script, it would be wonderfully appreciated. I don't know anything about debugging myself, but you know, maybe this will bring attention somewhere and someone can help fix the Lua script for SVC Chaos and the Hitbox Viewer and all that. Very briefly too, here's a quick rundown of where you can find some SVC Chaos matches online. And with that, the SVC Chaos Guide video is over. This video isn't meant to be super in-depth, just to cover the basics, guide people in the right direction, and get more people playing in general. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video proved useful in helping you get better at the game, or at least get started. I'm not entirely sure it's up to the standards I originally had in mind when making this video, but it's probably for the better that I don't destroy my sleep schedule like I did with my Art of Fighting 3 videos. What I'll do for SVC Guide videos after this one, I'm not sure, but in the meantime, go play some Chaos. And if nothing else, even if you dislike SVC Chaos, you gotta admit the presentation on this game is pristine quality, especially when you consider the game was rushed and probably involved Capcom holding SNK by the neck, their relations with each other quickly eroded.
Yeah.